Hello, Mustang fans, and welcome to a special episode of the Mustang Owners Podcast. I'm your host, John Clore, along with my co host, Mike Ray. And Mike, we always talk about everybody having a Mustang story, and Mustang itself has one heck of a story. And Mike, how many times have we seen would be historians get onto YouTube or Instagram or TikTok? And these guys are on Facebook telling the world about all they know about the Mustang, and we find out it's wrong and we just wince. We go, oh, no, that's not right, because you can't stop it. But, Mike, they tell us when we contact them, well, it must be right because I saw it on the internet.
The cool and special privilege we have, John, of knowing so many certain people, the Gail Haldermans, the John Colettis, the Dave Paraseks, those guys, the Donald Farrs, right? All those guys with all their knowledge and history behind it, or had their hand in the jar, right? Doing it all. We heard those stories for the people that were actually in the room, so we know the real truth behind it.
So we're gonna fix this tonight, Mike. I got a letter, as we always do. We're going to do another mailbag soon, folks. It's not that we're not reading your letters, we are. And it was called "This Day in History is Perpetuating the P-51 Myth." And folks, you know what I'm talking about. You'll hear every once in a while, oh, the Mustang was named after the P-51 World War II fighter plane, and that's where it came from, and somehow got to be a horse. But that's what happened. And no, that's not what happened. And we kill them a million times, no, and they won't listen. This guy, his name is Kevin Kelly. He's from St. Peters, Missouri, and he just found This Day in History. A lot of people subscribe to it, Mike. It's from the history.com channel, and they have This Day in History. And on January 27th, they're talking about the Shelby GT315 debuting, and what this guy said. He said, "Good morning, John. Do you have a guy that can contact history.com and get this fixed? A guy that they'll believe?" It says the Mustang was named for a World War II fighter plane. The Ford Mustang had a long hood and a short rear deck, and named after that fighter plane. And Mike, we know that's not true. So do we have a guy? We do have a guy. We're going to bring in my smart friend. Nobody can beat this guy on Mustang history. It's Jim Smart. Jim, welcome to the Mustang Owners Podcast.
Well, good afternoon or evening in your part of the world. It's a pleasure to be here. I thank you for the invite.
Well, don't thank us until we run you through the ringer, because Mike is constantly getting mad about these people. Keep saying this, and we're very nice about it, Jim. We'll say, no, that's not true. And he goes, no, I have a book. I have a book there. So, Jim, don't you have a book?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you go.
Mustang does it. And I mean, it was the only Mustang book out there in the 70s, as far as I know. And so this is where this stuff begins, if I ever find the page. Jeez.
And the internet nowadays is just, it goes rampant.
There it is, Mike. The P-51 fighter. So it's in a book, so it has to be true. And Jim, you've written books, I've written books, and I've spent too many hours over at Archives wearing those goofy little gloves, and that little with the baby talcum powder on it, and going through photos. Too many hours. And Mike, that's why when you say, "Hey, John, you should do another book," I say no, because if you take every hour you spend on research and you added it into what you made on the book, you make about 1.6 cents an hour.
So, yeah, sounds about right.
But Jim, you have one of the few people I know that's been able to sit down and actually talk with Lee Iacocca. I've been blessed to have a lunch at the Dearborn Country Club with Gail Halderman on one side and Hal Sperlich on the other, and burn through all of my little tape recorders and all of my. I ran out of batteries. But this is the kind of stuff that drove us nuts. And every time Mike would hear this, Mike, you have a weird sigh. You go like this. No. Because you've talked to Gail. We've been at the Miller's Bar in Dearborn, and he's gone over this 1,000 times. No. So, Jim.
And, John, also, I remember this conversation, too, at Lee Iacocca's funeral. Like I said, I was sitting in the middle on a couch between Gail and Hal, just talking about everything, and that was one of the topics that came up as well.
Yeah, named after an airplane. So, Jim, so it's probably true. There are some authors who kind of skim what they can find out. I don't know if they've spent any time in Detroit at the archives, which, by the way, is not all of Mustang history that's in there is correct either. And I'll talk about that in a second. But Jim, in your estimation, once what's in one book, then it gets put somewhere else, and then it gets picked up, and it's like perpetuated. And when you find out that's not the case, I know you've written about this, Jim. It's never been named after an airplane. And I've written columns about it. Never. That's not what happened. And yet it still persists to this day on January 27th of 2026. History.com is perpetuated. So, Jim, what is your knowledge of, we know where it came from, but how do we fix this? Because you know it's not true. And how do you know it?
That is a good question, because between Lee Iacocca and Gail Halderman, I have heard from at least these two people. I'm pretty sure I may have brought it up with Jack Telnack when I sat down with him, but the P-51 story has never been true. I mean, you said something about the Mustang one and one of the marketing guys, but the reality of it is Joe Oros wanted Cougar, and that was what he wanted. But what it boils down to is they needed a name. In fact, I'll throw something else in there. Mustang was originally going to be called Torino. And when it hit the airwaves that Henry had something going on in Italy with Christina, there was a mad panic to get rid of the name Torino. And so that's when they looked to J. Walter Thompson. And J. Walter Thompson came up with something like 3,000 possibilities, and then ultimately landed on Mustang. The inspiration for the production Mustang really just came from the two-seat car, and it was a good name. It stuck, and it was an all-American kind of a name. But I mean, this was 11th hour stuff. I mean, there were badges made that said Torino. I'm trying to think. There was another name for it, but anyway, Torino GT or something like that. So when that name got scrubbed, I'd like to find Torino badges, at a Detroit garage sale, But anyway, the name Mustang stuck, and then at the last minute, they had to come up with the galloping horse and the tri-bar theme and all that. 11th hour, I'm talking like December, January, 63, 64, last minute. So anyway, the name Mustang came from the horse. Like
never a plane.
Like you said, Mike, you don't see an airplane on the fender.
Never. And it's nothing. It's never. I've never seen it in any of the archives. And since you got a chance to talk to Iacocca, he liked the horse idea. He liked the idea of a wild horse. For the Wild West, wasn't it?
Yeah, the all-American Wild West theme. I mean, it worked in the advertising and the horses and the Mustangs roaring through the dirt and all this stuff. And
it conjures up. It's a beautiful image of those horses. And when I talked to Sperlich and Halderman, they said, John, there was a guy on that original design team. They had Oros, they had Charlie Phaneuf, they had Halderman, of course. But there also was a guy named John Najar. And John was brought in. He did mostly the interior. He was brought into the design area because he had worked on the Mustang One concept, and they were floated. The idea for Mustang One, that little horse that was on that concept car in '62, came from a guy named Phil Clark. Yeah. And Phil was worked at GM and drove across country to Ford to get a job in Detroit or in Dearborn. And he was the one that was inspired by the running horses. And when he got to Detroit, he penned the famous tri-bar logo, red, white, and blue, and had that there when he was working on Mustang One. Now, we know his daughter, Mike. Didn't you get to meet Phil, his daughter?
Holly's been at our event multiple times. Yeah.
Holly, that's right. And she did a book about her dad. Yep. Not getting credit for drawing the Mustang One and about doing I mean, remember
John
that?
tried to take all the credit, I believe, right?
Yeah, so I found out from Sperlich and Halderman that Najar was a aviator, and he was talking to the media one day, and he loved the P-51. He said, "We're going to name it after an airplane, and it's the fiercest fighter." And he talked about that's where it's going to get its name. And Hal Sperlich started to laugh, and Gale was shaking his head like this. He goes, "No designer gets to name the Mustang. That's not how it works." And if that was the case, Joe Oros would have had his Cougar, Jim, right?
Well,
Right.
The Cougar was in the little
In the corral, yeah.
in the cage, right?
Yeah, and see, the Cougar would have been a good name for this car, just as good as Mustang, but Mustang really stuck. And I remember the ads. I was 6 or 7 years old at the time, but I remember the ads, and I didn't understand what a horse had to do with a car.
True.
Little did I know that, God almighty, I had no idea at that time. But I mean, I just didn't understand the horse and the car. What's a car have to do with a horse? But
Right.
young and stupid.
No, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, because we were at Miller's Bar one night with Gale. Remember, he would come down, and we'd have to go meet him. And we were down there one night, and he told us that John Najar was having someone write his autobiography, and in that book,
Yes.
he was going to put that he named the Mustang after the plane, and somebody changed it. And
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Remember how Gale got all upset? He goes,
Yeah.
he did not name. He goes, we don't get to name the Mustang. And like Jim said, he said that the agency came in, and Iacocca loved the whole Mustang thing, and he liked the whole Wild West thing. And he said, and so did the inner group that built the car. And the funny thing is, Jim, John never, the book never came out. And when I asked Gale about his contribution, he said Najar was trying to take major design themes on the original sketch and change it. And Oros finally said, you just stick with the interior. Don't mess with this, because Iacocca already picked Gale's sketch. And when now I don't know if this is true, but Sperlich said Oros was very upset that they named it after a horse, because they were teasing Oros because the Cougar is a cat, and he goes a lot more people like cats than like horses. And Iacocca came in. He goes, the horse is the powerful of the Wild West. This is what it's going to be, and it's not going to be anything else. He blessed it, and from that day forward, I can't find anything in the archives with an airplane on it. Nothing from Mustang 1. Nothing in the sketches. Nothing in any of the research papers. Jim, it's nowhere. And why does it show up every freaking month?
Because you know why? This stuff remains in circulation. This BS editorial remains in circulation. Somebody picks up an old copy of a magazine, or picks up something like this and goes, well, see, it's named after the P-51. But I know Iacocca was adamant that the P-51 was never a part of it. And if it was, it's like you said, Mike, there'd be an airplane silhouette on the fender, or propeller, a red, white, and blue propeller.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, remember, you guys, did you guys see Bob? You know Bob Freya, don't you, Jim? When Bob was around, he did Mustang Genesis, the Mustang Genesis.
He passed from COVID.
Yeah. So Bob before he passed, was on. We were on Mad Men. We did a DVD about the marketing of the Mustang, and he said that his when he was asking questions about the airplane, and they asked, well, why didn't Ford go with the airplane? Somebody had said it sounds too airplaney, and there's no such word as airplaney.
Airplaney. Well, you can add a word to it.
Yeah. So we're gonna. I guess we will contact history.com, and for Kevin. By the way, Kevin Kelly, thanks for sending this in. But if you sent it to Mike Ray, he would have just gone off. You would have already emailed history.com. So
I'm glad you had Jim on speed dial.
Right. So this is why, Mike, the Mustang Owners Podcast, we have to bring, the fact that these guys were there. Iacocca got the final say on that car. And when Jim talked to if Iacocca told Jim that, that's what he said. He was there. He's no longer with us. Gail's no longer with us. We lost Sperlich last year. But from our conversations with the guys who are actually there, that's not the truth. So the truth is, for all you Mustang fans who love that Wild West, that crazy horse that can't be tamed, cannot be subdued, it's been a horse. It's always been
John,
a horse.
also, you and Jim have both had very intensive interviews with these people. With the people who actually created Mustang. I've spoke to most of them, but not to the extent that you two have. You guys have did some, you guys dug deep, right, on a lot of questions with them and learned a lot that most people in the public do not know.
So, Jim, when this happens, are we in for a worse future because AI is here? And what it does is it scrapes what's out there already. It doesn't create new history. It scrapes it's garbage in, garbage out. So, Jim, do you think that there's just no way to stop these myths about Mustang being an airplane because AI is going to find it somewhere and then perpetuate it?
What concerns me is there are so many myths associated with Mustangs. There's misconceptions with engines, like everybody calls 260, 289, 302 engines Windsors. Ford never called them Windsors. The 351 Windsor, and then what's the other one? Oh, everybody calls it a 400M.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a 400M. There's the 351M, and I heard this straight from why can I think of his name? Bill Barr, who was an engineer at Ford, and the 302 tunnel ports were getting murdered in '68, so he needed a solution. So he went over to Ford Advanced Engines to look at the 335 series engine, which was in development, and discovered that the bore spacing and the head bolt spacing and all that was the same. Mm-hmm. So can I borrow a cylinder head or two? And that's where the Boss 302 came from. So a Boss 302 head is a Cleveland head. That's it, other than cooling passages. But the point is, for years we wanted to know, where did the Cleveland come from? It's like an Oldsmobile V8 in front with the stacked fuel. So, but that was when Bunky Knudsen was around from GM.
Right.
But there was also Smokey Unick involved in that. But the 351 Cleveland came from within the company, out of Ford Advanced Engines, about '67, and I think it was '68, late '68 into '69, that Bill Barr went over there and looked at the head with these gigantic ports, and it's like, he just took I don't know how many heads he took back with him, but the Boss 302 block is a 302 tunnel port block. Only
with the Cleveland heads, right? Right, exactly.
Sometimes.
So, Mike, can we do this with Jim then? Can we let's start taking these myths one by one, and get Jim back on, and we're going to take these on, Mike, one by one, and get them out there, and then shoot them down. Like some guy came to me, he said, the Cleveland, the 351 Cleveland is a big block. I go, what? No, it's not. He goes, yeah. I said, Ford never called their larger displacement engines big blocks. That's something we never called them big block. A 390, we didn't call them that.
They were FEs.
Yeah.
They're FEs, yeah. Or the 338s. We didn't call them that. And I said, by the way, the Cleveland is in between those 400 and 390, and it's not really I don't know how you associate it with a big block. Oh yeah, that's the problem with you, Clore. You guys in that Mustang Club, you've been in that Moxham group too long. They're a bunch of old codgers. They don't know. I go, we're going to have, Jim, you are now going to be part of the podcast. We're going to take these myths one by one and shoot them down, just like we had a P-51 chasing a Messerschmitt. Wait, did they fly together, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know if Jim knows either, John. Also with, he mentioned Bunky Knudsen. Jim, Bunky's daughter, Judy, used to be my dad's boss in the federal court system for like 30 years, and she was at our heroes banquet and everything like that. So we had Bunky Knutson's daughter there with us, telling us a few stories as well.
Boy, do we have the story to tell with Bunky, yeah, Jim. Did you
Yeah.
get to talk to Bunky when he was around?
Did I?
Yeah.
I think I'm losing your audio here. I think it's on my end. I never had an occasion. I've talked with Don Fry. I kind of forget conversations I had with Don Fry. What got me was he was having memory issues, and so I never got very far with Don Fry. But Knutson, I never had an occasion to speak with, and
Well, I can tell you this. Mike and I were privileged to sit over at Miller's Bar in Dearborn when Gail didn't think too highly of Bunky.
Yeah, I remember.
Remember the stories he would tell about, Iacocca had his boys, and when he got booted out and Bunky came in, they didn't make life easy for Bunky. Although, we'll share another myth, Mike, about how the 1969 Mustang lost its hip scoop with Larry Shinoda coming in under Bunky. And there's so many things we can share with you, but Jim, you are one of the top renowned experts. We'll get Donald Farr in to back us up. We've had Kevin Marty, Bob Perkins knows original cars. We're going to stop this. The Mustang Owners Podcast will be the place where people come when Jim Smart comes on, and we're going to tell them what we know to be a fact. And Jim, I can't thank you enough for wanting to get involved with two crazy guys like me and Mike on the podcast.
Well, I'm just another crazy guy, but I have to tell you something. I don't know how much time we have left, but when I sat down with Iacocca, he spoke very sympathetically of Henry Ford, as much as things did not go well between the two of them. But Bunky, Iacocca hated Bunky. I mean, he hated him. And in our interview, and I couldn't put it in the article.
We can use it on the podcast. This is YouTube.
But the way Iacocca put it was Bunky, the Mustang.
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's something they allocated an hour for me to talk with Iacocca, and we sat there 2.5 hours, and he just kept coming up with stories, and it's like, but when I got on the subject of Bunky Knutson, you could see blood oozing out of his Yeah.
That's great.
Oh God! But you got to love it. Politics are part of the corporate structure to this day. But Jim, we have to pry your mind open and get to some of these stories on the podcast, because as we're recreating the podcast for the upcoming year, we want to do more and more of the history and tell the inside stories that we happen to know. We don't want to keep it to ourselves. Because Mike would never order Mike would order a second order of fries at the Miller's Bar. Mike, they had those little skinny ones that you just couldn't, you ate them like popcorn.
We're due for a trip back there soon.
And Gail Halderman, he didn't have a beer, he'd have his Coke, but he'd sit there in the corner of Miller's Bar and tell those stories like we were supposed to, Jim, have an hour. We were there, Mike, 3 hours? 2 hours?
And the funny thing you bring about Miller's Bar, first time I ever met Donald Farr in person, I took Donald to dinner and we went to Miller's Bar. That was the first time I actually ever got to sit down and talk to Donald. And God, that was 20 years ago. So
we're going to tell you now, Jim. We're gonna let the cat out of the bag. One thing that Mike and I want to do is to have the what we call the Heroes panel, the Superstar panel. When we go to Carlisle, we're going to get Jim Smart, Donald Farr. We're going to get Kevin Marty. We'll bring up Bob Perkins. We're going to get a whole panel of guys, and we're going to have the Ask Us Anything section. And Mike, we're going to hit a home run, because these guys, like Jim Smart, boy, having him here tonight. When you hear it, folks, when you hear it from me or Mike, fine, you don't believe us, but you heard it tonight from Jim Smart himself. The Mustang was never named after a plane. So get it out of your head. Go cry in your beer. Do what you have to do. But stop perpetuating this, and we'll put a stop to what we see. Thank you, Kevin Kelly, for sending that in. And thank you, Jim Smart, for spending this time with us. And we're going to have you back now as a regular. So get used to myth killing on the Mustang Owners Podcast.
And we'll have a lot of fun. And I've got a lot of stories. And Donald, I know Donald has got a lot of stories. So, you know, for
Yeah,
50 years and stuff.
Mike, that's the problem with having Donald out. We always stay too late with him.
But you know, and like I said, in this industry, it's all about who you know and the connections and the networking you do. Donald's the one that introduced me to Tom and Gail Wise, right? So I mean, I would have never met them without Donald. And look at that
Remember
relationship has just been amazing.
John Graffelman, and we've met some of all the people.
Another one Donald introduced me to was John Graffelman.
Because guys like Donald had to put these cars on the cover of Mustang Times, and you know, all the magazines you wrote for, Jim. You have met so many people. So let's do this, Jim. Do we have your promise that you'll come on and share these stories and myths with us?
Just say when.
We got it.
There we go.
We did it. Thank you, Jim Smart, for joining us tonight on the Mustang Owners Podcast. We'll be seeing more of you soon. Appreciate your time, brother.
Well, my pleasure. Really is.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jim.
Don't forget, you're my smart friend.
You don't stick.
I need one of those buttons, John.
I got it from Jim himself at the 50th in Charlotte.
Nice.
Yeah.
Don't
Anyway,
stick yourself with that thing, okay?
I had to look for this. This is 10 years old. I had to look far and wide for this for tonight's podcast. But thanks again, Jim. Mike, I think we finally done it. The Mustang Owners Podcast killed the P51 myth. We did it, Mike.
There you go.
We're gonna find out. Actually, we'll let you know.
With the feedback, right?
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this special episode of the Mustang Owners Podcast. No, the Mustang was not named after a plane. So if you have a question like that, you can send it to me, jclore at carsincontext.com. And make sure you like or subscribe to the Mustang Owners Podcast, because we got to beat this YouTube algorithm. You know, I'm sure everybody will want to know the real truth when we get it out, especially when we have Mr. Smart on more. So keep them coming. Keep those questions, and Mike will have a mailbag soon, won't we? Maybe in a week. So thanks again for your time tonight, folks. Until next time, we'll just have to catch you guys down the road.